Let's talk about the origin of the theory of evolution. It goes back to the time of Darwin, 150, 175, 200 years ago, whatever it was. Before that, God was an absolutely adequate explanation, a scientific explanation of everything that existed, and people were satisfied with that. But other people came along and said, this God thing has a moral component, and it seems like God wants to keep us from all the things that we really enjoy doing. So let's look and see if we can find another explanation that leaves God out. Well, if you think about the nature and the character of anybody who would be running from God, that tells you something right there about who they are. And I don't know about you, but I don't want anybody to hold my credit card if they don't believe in God, or my checkbook, or anything. I don't even want to vote for somebody that doesn't believe in God if I have a choice, because God makes the difference between whether you have an unmoving standard of right and wrong, or whether you make the rules for yourself. Now, if you make the rules for yourself, it makes sense for me to say, you live any way you want to, but don't tell me how to live. I'll make up my own mind. Because without God, there's no unmoving standard. It's every man for himself. So it makes sense. Evolution's only reason for existing is to get rid of God. There is no other reason that I can find why evolution would be useful. And again, the theory of evolution is just an explanation that leaves God out of the picture. They leave God out in the beginning, and we think they come to that conclusion in the end. If you and I could look over the shoulder of a scientist, say shortly after Darwin published the theory of evolution, and it really stood the world on its head for a while. And we picture the basic scientists going back into their labs and re-examining reams of data. And they're going to make hundreds and thousands of decisions in each field, from, say, botany and biology and chemistry and physics, all the way to zoology and all of the disciplines in between. Go with me in your mind's eye into one of these laboratories, and we're watching a science. He's looking at a process and an outcome, and he's trying to decide, do I ascribe this to the theory of evolution, or do I ascribe it to God? And maybe he'll take a long time, but he will come to a conclusion. And not only on this decision, but on decisions across the disciplines from one end to the other, it's found in favor of evolution and not against God. So let's say you and I have the opportunity to engage the science and say, we've been watching over your shoulder. We want you to make the decision. You gave it to evolution and not to God. May we ask why you gave it to evolution, not to God? Well, he probably scratches his chin, he ponders, and in a while he says, it just seemed like the right decision. And we say, well, thank you, but that doesn't help us. Would you tell us why it seemed like the right decision? And he said, well, based on what I know, it seemed like the right decision. So we say, do you mean you don't have a standard by which to justify why you don't assign it to God and why you do assign it to evolution? Silence. Silence then, silence now. There are probably tens of thousands of volumes in the university libraries and libraries across the world that purport to prove that evolution is settled science. The reason they can't do that is because they eliminate God before they start, and they assume there's no God and take it from there. If they had a standard by which to justify assigning it to evolution and not to God, it seems like that would be in the science courses from the lowest levels through the intermediate levels to the highest levels. There would be a standard. I can justify assigning it to evolution. I can justify not assigning it to God by this standard. What standard? I don't think they have one. I don't think there is one. I think this explains why they rule by coercion, by intimidation, by censoring other viewpoints, by ridicule. When the science of let me put it this way. When scientists who were Christians a generation ago began to make a noise and say, we believe that we can have creation science, the other side just put them down. Oh, you want to teach religion in school. So later on, here comes the theory of intelligent design. We think that intelligent design explains these things better than a big, oh, you're wanting to teach religion in school. That's religion. Get it out of here. After that, they came up with complexity, specified complexity. And after that, irreducible complexity. An example of irreducible complexity is a mousetrap. The mousetrap has a foundation, has a spring, a hammer, a bait hook, and if you reduce it by any one of those things, it's no longer a mousetrap. There's a reducible, irreducible simplicity. If you go beyond that, it doesn't function. So they pushed these aside. They had to push them aside because they don't have the justifying standard by which to say, we'll attribute this to the theory of evolution, not to God. If they had the standard, you would know it. It would be in every course syllabus. It would be on every exam. We would know it. We don't have it. Now, if I'm right about this, and if this is the true explanation, then they have said to us, the Garden of Eden is a myth and a fable. And if they don't have a justifying standard, it's them that's believing in the myth and the fable. We could talk a great deal longer on each of these points and other points. That's all I have to say, but if you have a question, now I need to give you a warning. I love questions. I'm great at questions, but I don't have all the answers. But I'll give it a try. If you have anything you want to ask, I'll see if I can clarify or expand. Yes?
Do you think,
Speak louder, please.
Do you think evolution and Christianity can overlap, or are they mutually exclusive?
Well, there are people that want to talk about theistic evolution. So long periods of time don't fit the history. I don't deal in science because the only answer we've had so far are scientific answers, and it's like saying my science provides a better answer than your science, and they control all the microphones and all the media and everything, so we don't get to make our case. I don't think you have to allow for evolution. I don't think there's any reason for it other than getting rid of God, and I don't think they have a justifying basis by which to ascribe to evolution and not to God.